Welcome to Mama's Playground. This is Darlene.
And this is Monica.
And this is
Kathryn Bregman.
Yay! We got a guest.
We have a guest speaker. Kathryn is a fertility coach, guys. This is going to be a very interesting topic.
From Badass Fertility.
Badass Fertility. Yes.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes. Kathryn, I mean, let's just jump straight into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, everything.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor. I love your show. You guys are so much fun. And you always have such cool topics. And I just love like your sense of humor and your vibe. So
thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just really happy to be here. And so I will jump right in. So I work with women who are struggling to conceive, and I help them really with like the side of fertility that I think is the most important and the most often ignored, which is the emotional health component. Okay. So it's really like when women come to me, when they enter my program, I have a coaching program called the Badass Fertility Program, BFP for short. And when they come, normally they have spent at least 1 year or more trying to conceive. And in that experience, they have normally been given a battery of tests. They've been given scary prognoses, and they've been given very little sense of like power or control or like confidence, hope. Yeah. Exactly.
They feel helpless.
Yes. And those feelings, like truly from not just like an emotional perspective, but from a neurological scientific perspective, when you are feeling like super stressed out, when you're in fight or flight mode, your prefrontal cortex is not thinking straight. So what happens is you get these diagnoses and then you freak out because who wouldn't, right? We want to have a baby. It's like so many women's dream to have a child. And so your dream is now being threatened. So naturally you're going to go into stressed out overdrive mode. Yeah. But when you're in stressed out overdrive mode,
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen for so many reasons, right? So we can look at that like from the physiological perspective, the neurological perspective, the emotional, energetic, spiritual perspective. I mean, you can take all of that, And so what I realized when I was struggling to have my daughter, because it took me about 4 years to get pregnant with her, I started trying to conceive with my husband right after we got married. I was 36 years old, and I already was like, "Oh my God, I'm so
the clock is
ticking." Like,
it's like how are you not stressed when you have the stress of society also, and also knowing your body? It's like the clock is ticking, so that
gets harder.
That itself is stressful. Finding the right person also. I mean, I was told, because you're a career woman. I'm like, no, I started late because that's when I,
found the person that you wanted.
Yeah,
exactly. So. Same with me. Like I wanted everything to be lined up before I had a baby. I wanted the right husband. I wanted to own my house. I wanted my career. I wanted it all in place.
On your time.
Yeah. And it just took that time. And now, honestly, looking back, I'm like, 36 is like nothing. Like 36 it's so young. Like,
41 here.
Exactly.
I had her at 41, yeah.
You had your daughter at 41. I had my daughter at 40.
I had my first at 36 and my second at 39.
Yay. Right. Exactly. Yes. Like, hello.
Yes.
So we are fed this like
we are the what is it? The 40s club basically right now.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. And but I'm sure, I don't know how you guys felt. I mean, you've shared a little bit, but like you have this fear, that like you're behind or that you're late. And that's how, so many women I work with are feeling. So I found when I was trying to have my daughter, and we tried for like about a year before we went and pursued IVF. And then IVF led to all kinds of prognoses. And they were like, you have this wrong with you. You have that wrong with you. You have all these different things. Endometriosis was one of the main ones.
Yeah.
And, we did a couple of egg retrievals. They failed. We got embryos, but none of them were genetically normal. And at that point, I was like,
what
really
does that
broken.
mean? That they were not?
That's a good question. So it means that they, like my doctor recommended, it's an option. You don't have to test your embryos. You can just get an embryo and be like, let's transfer the embryo. Mm-hmm. Or, because I was quote unquote advanced maternal age.
Yeah.
Right. The doctor was like, it's better if you test them so that if you get an embryo that's genetically normal, it's going to be more likely to turn into a healthy baby. So their argument was like, you'll save time, you'll save heartache, you'll save disappointment than having like either doing a transfer and it doesn't work, or it works, but then it's a miscarriage. So, but there's like definitely schools of thought on both sides. And I always tell people like, you have to go with your gut, and you really need
your intuition.
Intuition is such a huge part of all of this, you know?
Wow.
And it's like another thing that gets blocked when you're in that stressed out state. You can't access it, you know, because your mind is like running, and you lose connection with that like higher knowing, you know, like that knows. Like
it's how interesting that you say higher knowing. What happened to me really quick. It's crazy because we've been doing this podcast for
a year
now. And this topic hits really close to home because, and you know, I had Luna at 41 and then I lost 2 babies right after. And I know I'm 46 and we're still trying, but obviously it's scary. The second baby, she was going to have Down syndrome. So, you know, they say God, you know, that's how he works and he takes care of it. But yeah, obviously very hurtful, and shout out to those women out there that have gone through a miscarriage. That's a whole nother episode.
So hard.
It's a lot of healing involved. But before that happened, I was tested here, like here in Florida for all these things, right? So then I was moving to California at the time, and I get a phone call from the doctor here. And she goes, oh, just to let you know that according to your numbers, there's no way you can have a baby. Like straight up. Whoa. She said, Darlene, you cannot have a baby. And this is over the phone because I'm in California. She's here in Miami. And I remember asking her like 3-4 times, you're telling me there's no way we can do it naturally. There's no way. And she's like, nope, but I can recommend you to IVF doctor. The first visit is going to be $300 just for consultation. Then this is how much it's going to be. I have the numbers of the 3 people right here in front of me. And I'm like, wait, first I'm still trying to process what she just told me. And then I'm like, you know, I just moved to California, so maybe I'll just find a doctor here.
Right.
She basically hung up in less than like 5 seconds. And, you know, I hung up and all I'm thinking is what she just told me. Later is that I'm like, wait, is this a business? Like, is this a business of like the OBGYN sending you to IVF doctors when you don't need it? Because after I was told that, a month later, I remember, for 3 days, I was just crying. I remember there was like the World Cup was going on and Colombia was playing. So my husband's, you know, we're watching the game and I'm holding one eye open just because they were so swollen from crying like for 3 days. So the 4th day I'm driving and suddenly I feel like this higher being, like this sense of like peace, saying like everything's gonna be okay. From that moment on, I did not think about baby, about the news. I didn't talk to like anybody about it. I wasn't stressed at all. And a month later, I was pregnant naturally.
Oh my God.
So yeah, and I say like it's that higher being and putting like myself in so much peace. Like my stress started becoming like finding an apartment because we had just moved there. And I remember my friend, she had like a paper and she's like on this side, on one side, she had like the doctors, fertility doctors. And I'm like, forget about it. I'm just focusing on finding an apartment. And so I was so relaxed and then it happened. Yeah. That's when it happened.
That's amazing. That is incredible. I mean, that story has like so many different layers to it, you know, because it really brings in that the news from the doctor part is so powerful, right? Yeah. Because I think so many women have that experience. I mean, when I got pregnant, it's a similar sort of thing where like, so we had these egg retrievals, right? Not genetically normal. And then I started working on my mindset, started doing all these things, like stopped IVF for a while, planning to go back. But right before I went back, got pregnant naturally at 40, right? And I remembered, I'm just kind of sharing that because my doctor was like, what the fuck? Sorry, I don't know if I can say that, but he was like, what? Like, you're pregnant, you know? And so it's the same kind of thing where we don't conform to the data and the statistics. And that's really what doctors are going by. And that's their job. Like, I would never like demonize a doctor or be like, you know, they don't know because they know their field. They know their
scientifically.
Stuff. Yes, they know the science.
The science.
But like, there's so much more to conception. And there's so much about it that has a mystery to it. Like you were saying, like your intuition, you knew, like something in you settled down, knew where to focus, and allowed like your body and your mind and your spirit to like take over and do the work, you know? And like, that might sound really like
I let
out
go.
there, but it's like, you know, it's real. Like it's a real thing. So
I remember I just let go. It felt like this, like, woof.
Well, they tell you, you basically let go of the anxiety.
Somebody doing to your back, like, I let go.
And that's what it is. I think when they give you a diagnosis or a diagnosis of something that, you know, is going against you, whether it's something that's not related to pregnancy or it's something, you know, your mind takes over. And when your mind takes over, it kind of escalates things worse. And when you learn to control your mind, things flow.
Yeah.
And it's a flow of two things. It's physical, but it's also emotional and, you know, mental. And when the mental's not right, but the physical is, that also doesn't work.
It's so true.
It has to go together.
True.
But even like it's just hard because, trying to conceive and then you start taking pills. They have me on Clomid. Like I just did 3 phases.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm doing this pain. First it was like $20 a month. Then it was like 60 something. And I'm like, I'm thinking, shit, I'm paying this. It better work. Whatever. IVF is $50,000, whatever. But these pills, and then with Fabian, it's like we have to do it, you know, on a schedule. So, and it's stressful for them too, because suddenly like he's working, we're doing other stuff, and it's like we have to have sex right now.
Right, exactly.
Because if not, forget it. We miss our chances. That takes out the joy out of things.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you bringing that up, I had a friend, I think I told you about this. Now she's got 3 kids. So going on to this, her and her husband got together. Her husband was older than her, maybe 10 years or something like that. And they were trying to conceive for a year and it just wouldn't happen. And they told, I think they said it was him. Like, no, he can't, you know, or something of that. And long story short, remember when she got pregnant with her first daughter, she comes to me and she goes, Monica, when we stopped thinking about it, when we just finally like let go of it, is when I got pregnant. And they had told them, no, you're not going to get pregnant. Like, there's just no way, he can't or whatever. She's like, when we really just stopped and said, you know what it is. Like, let's just, you know, we continue living our life. She got pregnant. And not one time. She got pregnant 3 times with the same man that supposedly couldn't have a baby.
Oh,
you know
my God.
what I mean? So it's kind of like, I think it really is a mental thing. Yeah. Obviously, there's physical ailments that can, you know, but I think it does go definitely hand in hand, you know?
I think it does. And I think it's so interesting because there becomes this like really fine line where like on the one hand, I think like the story you just shared, what you're talking about, and then also my experience is like, there's this point where you just surrender and you let go. And that is often like a critical turning point for conception. And at the same time, I'm going to say that even in that process of letting go, for so many of the women I've worked with, for myself included, like there's also a lot of like commitment and effort that also happens. So like, it's kind of like this weird balance almost. Like for some people, it can just happen, you know, the surrender part is enough. For other people, it's like, I'm going to surrender, but I also am going to get really honest about what I think is blocking me. Because like, there's something for everyone, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's past trauma or it's gluten, you know, like it's like something for everyone, you know? So I'm going to get like really honest with myself about what I think is going on, because we kind of all have that inner knowing in ourselves, but it's usually like, I have found this to be true so much. Like, it's like the last thing that you want to look at. Like, whatever.
I need to stop drinking.
No, you're naked.
Right.
For example,
that could be it.
That was going to be my next question. Do you believe in that? Like they say you have to prepare your body for 3 months before. So for 1 month when I started taking Clomid, I'm like, no alcohol, no nothing. I did the dry January. Yeah. My intention was to keep going, and it's like, I want my glass of champagne.
Of course. I know. It's so hard.
It's scary because it's like maybe I'm acting, you know, against what I want, but then is it really bad like to have your glass of wine or 2?
So that's a really, really good question. And it's like, again, it's all about the balance because on the one hand, yes, like we want to be preparing the body. right? And the 90-day thing is a real thing. And the reason why is it's because, and I am not a scientist here, so this is not going to be like the most like
we always say that in
rigorous
this show.
explanation.
Disclaimer.
In very, very layman's terms, like the egg that you're going to release that could potentially be fertilized comes up through, I'm going to say the follicle, right? 90 days before it's released. So that's when the quality of the egg is really being affected by its environment. So the more you can optimize the environment 90 days in advance, the more you're preparing it to really foster a healthy egg. So it's not like an arbitrary thing. That's where it comes from, right? And so people always say like, oh, try this for 90 days before you go and try and do X because you're going to be giving yourself more of a chance. Now, on the other hand, talking about like stress, right? And all the other things. If you're told, and I know this was a big thing for me, was also alcohol. Like, I like to have a glass of wine at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to do. And sometimes it's 2 and whatever. And like,
or 3. There's only 4 in a bottle.
So right.
You don't want to keep that bottle open.
It just goes bad. So it's like, you're going to have to drink it.
Well, they say it's good. It has antioxidants.
It has antioxidants.
There you go.
It's relaxing. So like, but there's, again, it's like that balance. So what I was advised and like was, okay, you don't have to give up alcohol. But there's like a threshold, right? So for me, it was like having 3 drinks a week, which was hard. Okay, I did not love that. But also like it's for a period of time.
Yeah.
And for me, like, and for a lot of the women I work with, once you really start to believe in yourself and like what you are capable of doing, and you start to really get focused on relaxation techniques, and finding the exercise that works for you, finding like the morning routine that works for you, finding the things that work for you, you start to set yourself up slowly, step by step, into like this whole new, better, more like, I want to say like fulfilling life. And that is when you really optimize your chances of conception.
That's when you're total relaxation.
But things are flowing now.
Yeah, you've got the mind-body connection. Like I would say with, even with the wine, going with that example, and everyone's got their own example, so we're just using that. But we all know, let's be honest, we all have our things, so like whatever, like
anxiety pills, give me some CBD.
Right, exactly. Like whatever your thing is.
Whoever smokes.
And and like you have to learn how to balance that, and so I think that's it. That's like a tricky one, but I think that's where the mind body stuff comes in, because for a lot of people it feels like a punishment and like you have to use willpower. And I would say if that's the angle you're going at it with, it's you're setting yourself up for failure. Because if you're like, oh my God, like, why do I have to do this? This like totally sucks. I hate it.
And this has to
there's already a mental block there.
And it has to happen now. Yeah.
There's
then
already a
like,
mental block.
You're punishing yourself.
Oh, man.
And so,
it happens. The other day, like I'm in the closet and I'm just trying to sort things and it's like, okay, do I really get into losing weight and getting rid of like all my pregnant? It's like I have everything in standby. There's like baby stuff that I have around the house, like obviously in boxes in the attic. And it's just sitting there waiting to see if I were to have another one. And then the clothes is the same thing. It's like, I want to get rid of all of this if I'm not going to get pregnant again. Like, I'm not going to wear these huge... But then I don't, it's
Where does one though, like you, because you're coaching women, that are obviously going through that. And I can't say that I've been through that. I have other issues I have had, but not, that wasn't the case, right?
Yeah.
Where does one finally say, I'm just going to give up? Like where does somebody finally say, okay, I think I've tried way too long? Like where do you see people say, okay, I'm done. I've been doing this for 5 years. It hasn't happened. Like I just, going to pass the page and I'm not going to keep trying. I'm 50 already, Like,
I'm ready to take notes.
I'm sure that's a personal thing for everybody. There's people that have willpower and they continue going, I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? And there's people that probably say, you know what, maybe this is the time, that I stop,
Following up on that one before you answer, because I also, after losing 2 babies and one of them knowing it was, she had Down syndrome. Also, I'm like, am I being selfish trying to have a baby at 46 if the chances of having a baby coming to this world sick, a baby that my daughter Luna will have to take care of her when we're not around, because you can't just leave a sick child. So I don't know. It's just scary for me. It's like, when do I stop trying? Because what if what I'm doing, it's actually the worst?
I think that's such
thing.
a personal.
Like,
it's
I don't
such
know.
a personal. I think it's personal.
So personal. And I really think for everyone it changes. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of mindset and doing the mind body work, because so I'll use an example of a woman who I've been working with now for about almost a year, I think at this point, maybe not quite a year, 6 or 9 months, maybe we've been working together. So when she first started working with me, she's 43. She's been doing IVF. She has one daughter already. Her daughter is about 4 or 5 years old.
Through IVF?
I think it was through IUI, which is a slightly different type of.
What's IUI?
IUI is less invasive.
Oh my God. We're gonna need 2 episodes to figure out all these initials. We need a part 2. Yeah.
We'll just say this: it was assisted reproduction, right? But a less invasive form than IVF. But so
if it's cheaper, I'll take it.
It is cheaper.
Okay,
it is cheaper.
We gotta talk.
Okay, we'll talk about that. So she struggled with the first baby, had this baby, right, and then wanted to have her second baby, struggled with the second baby as well. And about 50% of people who struggle with their first child struggle with their second. And then overall, secondary infertility, which is what it's called, if you have one baby and then you struggle to have the second, 11% of couples struggle with that in general, right? But if you struggle with the first, half of those people are going to struggle with the second. Half won't, right? So that's nice. But so that's just a little data there for you. But going back to the question, so she was really, hell-bent on having her baby, her, own genetically normal, baby from her.
Yeah.
But her doctor was starting to suggest donor eggs, right? Which is when you use the eggs of somebody else and you mix them with, generally speaking, your husband's sperm, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they implant it.
They implant it in you. So you carry the baby in your womb, but the genetics of the baby are coming from somebody else. From the mom who donated the eggs, right?
Right.
So
You're carrying it.
Women at first are
what a tough decision.
I cannot do that, Yeah.
Women use their sisters, right? But then it's just weird. It's you're the aunt and the mom. It's still,
it's hard.
It's hard. But you know where the genes are coming from. So
yeah. Well, when you do it, that's not my expertise. I've coached women who decide, okay, you know what? I've been working on this for several years on my own, using my eggs. I don't have it doesn't feel like the right thing for me anymore. I don't have the energy, the mind capacity to go through IVF again. So what am I going to do differently if I really believe that I'm meant to bring another child into the world? And that's when I'm there are so many ways to bring a child into the world, to bring a child into your family. And the question is, what is the way that really resonates in your heart for you?
adoption.
Right.
Yeah.
Adoption, fostering, egg donor, embryo adoption. I had another woman on my show recently who had both of her daughters through embryo adoption, which is actually a lot cheaper than egg adoption. So
what?
It's so
Darlene's
crazy.
going to be calling you. She's like, what egg?
That's
I'm
crazy.
curious too. I'm like,
going
what?
crazy here. I'm like, what?
I'm going to take you
Embryo
deep into my world
adoption.
here. So embryo adoption is basically when couples do IVF, right? And they make, let's say, 5 embryos and they're healthy embryos and they only want 2 kids.
Okay,
So
the
they
other 2
so they
are
use
sold?
2. You can opt to sell them. Yes.
Oh, they give, let's say that happened to you. They say, okay, Kathryn, you have 4, you're going to use 2. You want to sell the other 2.
Yeah. I think people probably call it more like donate.
I know, I'm
For a price.
I'm sorry. I'm like, they sell it? I don't know.
All right, give me $5,000. I'll give you my embryo.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But but that is the idea.
Okay.
And so so you decide we're not going to use, so when you have extra embryos after you've gone through IVF, you have a choice about what you want to do with those embryos.
The remaining.
The remaining embryos.
Freeze them.
You can keep them frozen indefinitely forever if that's what you want. You can choose to dispose of them, and you can choose to give them to a couple that's struggling to conceive. So those are
any
like your
embryo
options.
donors out there, send us a DM.
But then hold on, I'm trying to understand this. So that embryo is of, let's say it's mine. I'm the one that yeah, right? That's
Yeah,
how it is,
okay.
right? I'm the one, and then I give it to you, and then you implant it in your let's say body.
So, yeah.
And then like she'll have little Monicas. That's the
But she carried it.
Yeah.
Like you built
Right.
that connection with
Yes,
the baby inside. The thing
yes.
is, physically or whatever, it could end up looking obviously like me or, but you really carried it and you bonded with that baby. I didn't. I just gave you
Yeah.
my, I
And
guess
they-
depends how you look at it,
It's true. They say too, actually, and again, like this is getting out of my like area of expertise, but my understanding is that when you carry a baby in your body, you do genetically, like it does take on some of your genetic material, which
Okay.
maybe isn't quite the right word for it, but there's exchange of blood, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like while you're carrying it in your uterus. So you do connect with it on like that in many ways. Right. And I think it's really like for the two women that I'm talking about, at first, they started out saying, I want to have, a baby using my eggs, my husband's sperm, what have you. They encountered their own obstacles to that. And some people might say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And if that feels like the right choice, then that is the right choice.
Right.
And some people might say, I know there's a baby out there.
Oh my
and
God,
it might
yeah.
come to me differently than the way I originally thought and the way that I thought was the quote unquote right way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to like open my mind more and my heart more to explore the possibility of whether or not another way feels right.
Yeah.
And that again, that's where like the emotional wellness comes in, because when you're in that fight or flight mode, like we were talking about at the start of the show, it's really hard to grapple with huge decisions like that. Like you can't access your inner self and know, because you're just like all up in your head, but if you can calm down, do the letting go that we were talking about, surrendering, trusting, learning how to really integrate those things into like your life. I always tell my clients like 5 minutes a day of mindful breathing when you first wake up, 5 minutes, that's it, will change your life.
Wow.
It will change your life because it will connect you to your intuition over time. It doesn't do it like on day one, but over time, do it for 21 days, 30 days, you will see like you just start getting more clear. You just start knowing like, yes, I want to go to coffee. No, I don't want to go to coffee. Like that struggle of like little daily things, starts to dissipate. And
I
it
think
doesn't mean like
that advice is, I think, for anybody that's listening to this.
That's beautiful.
Totally.
Anybody, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, when you're trying to conceive, I think that, taking those 5 minutes, I think, will obviously, when you're trying to conceive, help as well to clear things out and become more, not so stressed. But I think that's a good advice for anybody.
For anybody.
I totally agree. I think it's for everyone.
Tell us more about your program.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I love to talk about it. So, it's interesting because I've been working with clients one-on-one for about 4 years now. And throughout that time, like we've had a lot of success and a lot of great stuff, but there was always like this desire among women to want to connect with more women. And it's funny because there's actually a research study done by Harvard University that showed that women who are part of support groups who are struggling to conceive are 50% more likely to conceive as a result of being part of a support group.
Because they're getting advice also with support.
They're getting advice. And I think it's like knowledge, and it's also like, again, that emotional component, like just having someone. So in my program, it's like a variety of things. So you come into the program, I'll kind of take you step by step through it. It's 8 weeks long.
Okay.
You at first, like we do a 20-minute call together, just tell me your story so I kind of know each in person and what they're doing, what's going on in their lives. Then we start meeting weekly, and we meet weekly as a group. And each week we cover a different topic that's relevant to mind-body wellness for conception. So, for example, the first week we talk about something.
And are these meetings via Zoom?
Yes,
or is,
good question. They're all via Zoom. And so there's some, and they're all live, but they're also recorded.
Okay.
So, if you can't
go
make
back.
it. Yeah, exactly. And it's like all in like a course portal. So when you join, you go into this portal and I've got like meditations and different like workshops and things that you can just kind of do on your own, like as bonuses. And then once the program gets started in week 1, right? So let's say week 1, we're talking about negative thought patterns, right? So, and what something that I call the saboteur. And the saboteur is, it's like a thought pattern that you have ingrained in your mind. And we all have them. It's not just women who are struggling to conceive, right? But we're looking at it specifically like those thoughts related to conception. An example of a saboteur would be like, I'm too old.
Yeah.
I waited too long. Yeah, exactly.
It's like sabotaging.
Exactly. It's a sabotaging thought that's not true, right? Because if you're sitting there thinking, I'm too old, I waited too long, then that whole idea that we were just talking about, opening your mind and opening your heart, you're closing it down because you're convincing yourself, you're turning that thought into a belief. Now you believe that you're too old, you waited too long. So you're no longer thinking about all the different ways that it could happen. And instead your actions begin to reflect the belief that it can't.
You're focusing on the negative.
Right. And it's natural. Like everybody does it. We do it all the time, and it's like a practice for life because I always say like my fertility journey was my greatest teacher. Like it got me aware of my saboteurs and I have them and I work on them all the time now, in different areas, like related to growing my business, like whatever it is.
It made you more emotionally intelligent.
Oh, for sure.
That's what I want to say. We talked about this. It's like number one of that is like self-awareness. So it makes you self-aware.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's becoming aware of the thoughts because we think them without realizing we're thinking them and we believe them without realizing we're believing them. So it's just getting that awareness so you can intercede. And you know what helps with that? 5 minutes in the morning of mindful breathing.
Starting tomorrow.
Getting your mind to think nothing for 5 minutes is probably the hardest.
Instead of like, oh my God, I got to do this. It's no.
And seeing yourself, like it's really about being able to become the observer of your thoughts rather than getting caught up in them and believing them to be true all the time. So you could say like, that's interesting. Like I'm thinking I waited too long. Okay. Now I see that thought, like I'm aware of that thought. Let me just like choose not to follow it right now, or what have you. So we start out. So that's just an example. So in week 1, we'll talk about that. And then everybody has like an online portal and there's like questions and things like that encourage you to do written responses. Like here's the thoughts that I know are coming up for me. Here's the thoughts that I
journaling
want. Yeah, it's like journaling.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really powerful, I think, to just even put it down on paper. Yeah, because then you start to be like, wait a second, this is not even true. Like, I don't actually believe this, but I like think that I believe it. I live as if it's true. And when I stop and look at it, I realize it's not.
Yeah.
So we do something like that every week. And then we have, in addition to that, throughout the 8 weeks, we meet together as a group 3 times live. And we do like coaching, talking together, answering questions together. So that's where people really get to like interact with each other a lot and share stuff. And it's always different. Like sometimes it'll be like, if you were in the group and you came in and you were like, I am really struggling with, what to do next. Like, do I want to commit to pursuing this, or do I want to say, forget it, I'm done?
I got my daughter, I got my only child, and let's just call it a day.
Like, how do I resolve that conflict? How do I become at peace with whatever choice I make? So that could be something that we would coach on. And then I would work with you in front of the group. So the group gets to like observe it, because it's really powerful, because no one is ever the only person with that question,
or thoughts.
Yeah. Or thoughts.
And one thing that happens that's very sad is when, your kid comes to you, Mom, I want a sister, I want a brother. And I've had to not lately, but like hide videos of pictures of babies and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like if we were watching something where it's like the sibling and the baby, I'm like changing the channel.
So she won't ask you. You're avoiding it.
Because she was
Yeah.
doing it for a while. Like, Mom, I want a baby. I want to have a baby sister. I want to have a baby brother. And that breaks me.
I know. You're
That
like, I do
breaks me.
too.
Yeah. It's like, so we've had to explain to them, to her. You see, I'm thinking too.
See, that's powerful though. I think that's actually really good. I like that.
I had to explain to her, like, Mommy and Daddy, we're trying, but then I'm like, don't ask how we're trying. But we also want it. We always say, like, you got to pray. You have to ask God for the baby and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so hard. Like when the first child, like, I mean, they don't know. They just think like,
Yeah.
oh, just bring the baby home.
Yeah.
Like they have no idea
Yeah.
what's really going
What
on.
They watch Baby
for
Boss
you.
and they see it come through like the stork and they think
Yeah.
it's coming like and it's
Yeah.
delivered in your house.
They're like, go on Amazon, Mom, get that baby. You're just
So
like,
do you get
I
those
wish.
situations? I imagine you get those situations.
Yeah,
So-
totally. I mean, absolutely. And I think that, the key for the mom, for the dad is like when you can get at peace with yourself, then you can transmit that to your child. So they're taking their cues from you. If you are in conflict about it, which is totally normal and like makes complete sense, then the first step is really starting to get comfortable with yourself and where you are and what you really intend to do. And then you will emanate even a different energy around that with your child. And you won't necessarily, for example, feel like you have to change the channel when siblings come
Yeah.
up, because in your heart, you can embrace it and say like, we're finding a way to our baby. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at this as, or I've decided that you're going to be, you're going to
It's
be a
just gonna
one
be you.
and
Yeah.
like
We'll
reality.
be a triangle.
Yeah, we're a triangle, and like it's wonderful that some people have siblings, and it's wonderful to be like the center of our universe.
Yeah.
So it's all about you.
It's just hard
really
marrying a person with no siblings. I'm kidding, Fabian. I love you.
How does he feel about being an only child?
I mean,
He's like, no.
he never lived the other side, so he
doesn't know.
He doesn't know,
Yeah.
but I say like his guitar became like his sibling because he's been playing since he was like 4.
But your parents were only
But
child.
yeah.
Your dad and mom were both only
My
children.
mom always said, I'm going to marry a man that has a lot of siblings. My dad has no siblings. So it's like I'm surrounded, my mom, my dad, my husband, and,
And you guys were 3. You, your sister,
Yeah.
and your brother. So it's,
yeah. But no,
interesting, yeah.
siblings is awesome sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think that's so cool because like one of the things that, and this is going to start going in a whole other tangent, so maybe we can put it in like
a phase 2.
episode 2 or
No,
whatever.
for sure.
two.
I don't know how long we've been going, but I'm like, we're good.
But like one of the things for emotional wellness with fertility that that you can do is like really looking at the history of your family and your family's perceptions of everything related to kids. So whether it's like pregnancy, childbirth, having siblings, right? So there could be something there. And I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff. I'm not like diagnosing here or anything like that, because that's not my place.
Yeah.
But just like there could be something there going on emotionally with regard to that like single childness, that if you could explore it and kind of unpack it, it might like open up space for you to become more clear about whatever you want to do next.
Yeah.
But just like there, as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So that is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like the history of that dynamic, and then also how you feel about it. Because it'd be one thing if you were like, everyone's single child, we're a single child, we're good.
Yeah.
But you're not saying that. And so
No.
it's like, well, what is going on? It could be, especially if you like journaling.
She does. She likes to write everything down.
I do. No, but it's
I can
crazy
send you
because
like a picture of the thing if you want to try it.
I love
the
that.
exercise.
The
Yeah.
way I feel is like I'm not, Luna is 5. She just turned 5. I'm 46. And then, I don't know, I feel that I'm not going to be around forever. I didn't have her in like my 20s. So it's about when I leave this world, when my husband leaves,
That she has somebody.
that she has somebody that's blood. not like her husband and then her husband's family. I mean, it's blood, the sister, the brother. And so I always, but I guess, we just put stress in our head, and at the end of the day, you have to let go and
also
let God.
And let God. Yep. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. I agree.
You just, there's certain things you can't control, but I'm completely on point, even though, again, I'm here and I'm listening and I'm obviously part of this podcast. Oh, of course. But I haven't been there. I've had my own issues, but everything that you're saying resonates with me, except that you are pinpointing it down to a niche of women that have a certain issue going on. And so that's what they're basing it on. But all that work that you're talking about, I have done in my side for other shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
100%.
but what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's when things are not flowing, everything is stopped. And when that is your main thing that you're really wanting and something's not flowing, I can see the block, you know what I mean? And there's the day like, oh my God, I timed it and I did everything right. And you're so stressed about it because I've seen it with, other friends and so on, and they don't. They're stressing out about it. Their anxiety is at an all-time high. Like they're never going to have it. They get depressed. They get this, and those emotions block everything.
Exactly.
So it's. I could definitely see that.
No, it's so true. I mean, what you're saying, like I always say the exact same thing. Like in the work that I do is tailored to fertility. And obviously that's like my passion and the thing that like I can go on about, but the tools are for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the journal prompts, they're probably more relevant for fertility, but they could be expanded, like what's the negative thought that you're having about fill in the blank, like whatever it is.
But that's what made you do the work. And that's what made you get to where you are, because you had that issue yourself. So you can speak for, you're not just some doctor saying, oh, but I think scientifically, no, you went through it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you processed it and you went through your emotions and you did it. And then, you got to where you are now because of your experience, so I think, at the end of the day, it's a beautiful thing, it's you're catering it, but it's you're okay to, I can't sit and tell people to do that because I've never been there. You did that. You know what I mean? Yes. So
it's with much. Yeah. Thank you for your service. No, because you go on Google and there's so much information, so much misinformation, even from the doctors. Like the doctor that told me you can't have a baby. And I remember texting her the next day and I'm like, is there anything I can do? And she didn't even answer back. Like, it was kind of like...
Yeah, bye. You were another number.
Yeah, so point. I just feel that many women have to be careful where they're getting their information from, even doctors. Like, it's crazy. It's scary.
I think it's kind of like a 50-50, right? It's like scientific, because obviously there's factors in people that unfortunately, they exist and, things sometimes can happen. It's more physical than anything. Right. And then there is the mental part of it. I think it's both, and it's those two need to work together for things to flow,
Absolutely.
So.
One regret I have is like, I feel that I should have frozen my eggs.
Who would have known?
If I control those things.
That's
Kathryn, where can people reach you?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so you can always find me on Instagram at Badass Fertility, and you can also visit my website, badassfertility.com. And in the show notes, actually, if you guys are cool with it, I'm going to give you a link. And if you want to learn more about the three most common habits that block fertility, click on that link and you'll get like a sample of like a piece of my program, so you can kind of see what it's like and see if it speaks to you.
Perfect.
Oh my God.
That sounds
That's
great.
great. Yeah, I wish we could. We have to bring you back because I feel like
number two.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the program.
Darlene's gonna start going in the car because we have an hour drive from here, so she's gonna start thinking. So you're just gonna have to write it down.
She's gonna write down. I should have asked this. I should have asked this. It's like I'll just join your program and that's it.
And then you'll learn it all, and then you can come talk about it.
It's an 8-week program. It's an online
8-week program. It's all
and
online.
every week you practice something different. I think we cover like 2 men. Can we do one more?
When is it starting? Here we go. When is the next one starting?
Good question. The next one is actually starting May 8th.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's coming soon.
Cool. So if you guys are listening and you are, you are a friend or somebody.
You know what I'll do too? I'll go ahead and I'll put a link to join the wait list for the program. So if you, in the show notes.
Okay.
So if you join that wait list, you actually are eligible to get early access to register and up to $500 in discounts and bonuses. So it's really like a good thing. Just get on that list and then you'll have like first shot at everything.
Okay.
So we'll put that in there too.
That sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking time to come and
Yes.
talk to us.
Thank you so much.
For having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
And
This has
thank you
been
for
so
everything
fun.
you do for all these women.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Kathryn.